I am hopping on here from Bondi, Australia, to talk about manifestation and trauma, and talking all about how trauma can really impact the manifestations that we actually want and desire for ourselves. And I'm joined today by Valerie, and I'm going to bring her on board now to start this live. Talking about this because I feel like our understanding of manifestation can be quite limited if we don't look at it from a trauma lens. So very excited it is. Hey Valerie, how you going?
Hello. Good, good. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you okay. Can you hear me okay?
I can. We're both in two different spots today, so working out
Two
well
different
though.
spots and two very awkward spots too, because I know I'm Airbnb, you're in the middle of summer in a car, and so
Yes,
we're making it happen.
that's right. That's right.
So for my audience who may not know who you are, what you do, and why you are what you are, could you please share with everyone who you are, what you are, and why you do what you do?
Yes, so I'm Valerie Shand, and I'm a former trauma therapist turned quantum manifestation and healing coach. So, what I really do is help my clients really get to the next level, manifest in the quantum field. And we do it by really releasing old traumatic stored energy in the body through quantum healing. So, it's so much fun.
I love that. And before I introduce myself, I will say that I have had a real love for learning more about trauma, especially in terms of how it makes us who we are, and I think also impacts the manifestations we want for our lives as well. So for those of your audience who don't know me, my name is Ken. I am a holistic healing coach. I currently help a lot of high achievers to stop attracting emotionally unavailable partners and finally start learning how to attract healthy, committed human beings. And a lot of that in my work is going through trauma, because I think a lot of us don't realize how much we're just repeating the same patterns of behavior. We keep attracting narcissists, emotionally unavailable people, because they're familiar, and combined with our own dysregulated nervous system, we think it's chemistry, and it's just more of the same. So we manifest more of what we are, essentially. So Valerie, I'd love to get you to talk about this, because I feel like this is your baby as well. What is your definition of trauma, and how does it impact the human body and mind?
Yeah, so for me, because I've been working in this field for almost 2 decades, and I've literally been on the streets with people, when they were thinking about committing suicide. I've been responding to 911 calls. Like, you name it, I've seen it and done it. And so for me, trauma really means anything that was like an unprocessed emotion, an unmet need. And I think about it as big T's and little T's. So I think about big traumas that everyone, like if they experienced it, like a natural disaster, sexual assault, like it's probably going to be traumatic to everyone. So there's those experiences. But then there's also what we call small T's. And it's not that they're small in magnitude, but it's just that there are what may have been traumatic for me may not have been traumatic for you. So maybe a teacher yelling at me in kindergarten was really traumatic for me. And I closed myself off and I dimmed my light, versus for you, maybe that wouldn't have been, you would have just blown it off and just went out and played. Right. So it's kind of like all of those instances that we've had in our lives, wherever we had an unprocessed emotion, an unmet need, something wasn't met there, our body will take a snapshot of the state we're in at the time, and it files away and it stores it in our body so that we can, and in our limbic system, so that we can survive going in the future. So that way, when we get in another situation, our body pulls it up and says, oh my gosh, I remember this situation feels just like this other thing that happened. Let me pull up that file folder and see, how did we survive last time? Was it we shut off? Was it that we people pleased? Like, what was going on? Because we're just going to do that again, because we know we survived that. So we're going to survive again this way. So that's kind of how I think about it.
Yeah, I love it. I thought that definition of little t especially was so powerful, because I think you're absolutely right. And I think when we look at things like perfectionism, people pleasing, they are born from those little t traumas, in the sense that, the example I often use to complement yours is, well, I remember when I was young, I actually looked at a lot of students who weren't behaving well for teachers, and I would remember even thinking at the time, okay, well, I'm not going to do what they're doing, so I'll just do what the teacher wants. And that was my introduction to being a high achiever, is I'll just keep
Mhm.
doing whatever I'm supposed to do because that will get me affection and love. And I remember when I was yelled at by a teacher, it happened in that same year. Oh my God, that was traumatic. And I remember just thinking, okay, well, I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to be a smart ass. I'm not going to do whatever I did because it just clearly
Mhm.
gets me in trouble and makes me feel isolated and threatened from the rest of this school group and community that I'm in. And the only reason I remember that is because it was such a profound, you know, it's seemingly innocuous, but it was a very profound moment for me in my development because it quickly made me realize that if I did something out of line in that social environment, I was going to be punished. And I think that as kids, we're wired for social survival. And as you said, we just kind of keep repeating the same patterns and patterns, even if they don't serve us anymore, too. And ultimately, I think many of our childhoods were, to be completely honest, unsafe for us to be ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think about, really a lot of times it boils down to like that tribal instinct of our we don't want to get kicked out. We don't want to be ostracized from whatever family we're in, whether it's school family, whether it's our actual, home family. So friend family, whatever that is, like when we're kids, it's very black and white. A lot of times it's like good, bad, right, wrong. And we're just trying to navigate that in the best way that we know how. And in those moments come a lot of times of having those unmet needs. Because then if we had parents and generational stuff, which is a lot of what the work that I do too, getting into that piece, those are all things that have been passed down through our DNA, through epigenetics, and so we already have some other stuff hanging on that maybe wasn't even ours to carry initially.
Exactly. And I think that, that also comes out in the way we speak. For example, I remember my family had a very family first narrative. Like we just enable, we do things for the family, even if we don't like it, because that's what family is. And it's not to say that it's always wrong, but it can lead to behavior that deprioritizes our own wants and needs for the
Mm-hmm.
sake of maybe one or two individuals who we don't even agree with or who are even like, part of our own safety net, part of our support group or our tribe that we want for ourselves. So I think that it's really problematic in the long run because we're often, quite honestly, with the wrong people for longer than we need to be because we simply just don't align. But how can a child know that when they're growing up? They're only doing what they can do in a very hostile
Yeah.
situation, and it's really challenging. So, bringing this round to the wonderful world of manifestation, I
Yes.
know that you and I have talked a lot about manifestation, and one of my favorite things that you said to me when we first spoke was, we're manifesting all the time. Can you go deeper into that and explain that? Because I think that I agree with you completely, but I think it's hard to believe. I think if people are new to this field and think, oh well, don't I need to think positively? Don't I need to like do these steps to manifest?
Yeah. So I believe that we are always manifesting. It's just a matter of whether we're conscious of it or not. And
Mm.
so, whatever when we're talking about the quantum field, which we could go down a rabbit hole there, but that's what I really help my clients use to manifest. And so it's really getting like pinpoint on this vision that you have for yourself. So when we can be conscious of those things that we're creating, I call them like the stars that we're lighting up. So if I'm conscious of lighting up this star with my thoughts, and also it's about your body frequency, it's about your emotional frequency that you're sending out as well. So it's the two. So a lot of people think, okay, when I manifest, I'm just going to create this vision board, I'm going to put it up, I'm going to look at it all the time, um, and I'm going to say these affirmations. But if they're also not changing their body frequency of this old trauma that's anchoring them to the past, they're sending out mixed signals to the universe. So your mind might be like, yes, I want this six-figure business, or yes, I want this relationship. But yet you're storing all this old trauma, all this old stuck, I call it residual traumatic energy in your body that is vibrating because it's emotions, it's energy, it's vibrating at a different frequency, and it's sending mixed signals to the universe. And so it's pulling in mixed results or the things that you don't really want, but that subconscious programming within yourself is like magnetizing it to you.
Mm. I think that's a really powerful thing to draw awareness to, because I think that when it comes to manifestation, sometimes I think we manifest the things that we believe that we want for ourselves too. And I'm talking now about how people have the big ticket items. You know, entrepreneurs in our space who want $100,000 by the end of the year, the house, the car, all those things. And what's interesting is that they forget the receipt, which is the burnout as the result of that too. And I think that the reason I bring this up is to say that not like there's a cost to every manifestation, none of that. It's more just the fact that I think that we underestimate how much, again, our trauma can also lead us to continuing to suffer if we haven't met and reconciled that energy, the emotions, the unprocessed emotions, as you called it, from our past. I remember even after I'd done like loads of work on myself, I was still calling in the same kind of man into my life romantically again and again and again and again until I forgave the original person who really hurt me. And when I did that, I then found this new level of indifference and also peace. And I feel that that's what's missing from a lot of this, is just being able to cut a lot of that energy and those emotions, because when we don't do that, we just bring in more of the same thing. Even in my business life, I found like when I was getting goal after goal, I was exhausted.
Yeah.
I was just like so tired. I was just working with people who sometimes I didn't even enjoy working with them. I love working with a few other people too. So again, those mixed results. So based on your experience with this, now a teacher in this realm, Valerie, what do you think people need to do in order to, you know, truly attract what they authentically want versus what they think they want?
Yes, that's so huge, because I share this example where I thought that I wanted this big, huge mansion in the mountains here. Like that was my thing. I was like, yes, this is what I'm going to get. I'm going to get it by like next year. Here we go. And then I started doing the work and really getting connected with my highest self. So that's the work I do with my clients first, is to connect with their highest self. And I realized, wait a minute, I don't want that big house. Like I don't want to have to keep it up. I don't want to have to take care of all these rooms in this big house. I don't want to pay the taxes on it. I don't want any of that. I want a nice cabin in the mountains. And that is what my soul was like craving out for. That was my highest self saying, no, 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 we're going to show you this other thing that you desire and can get. And so that's the very first step that I teach my clients and that I talk to people about, is really connecting with your highest self. Because I believe your highest self is just the highest expression of you in this body, right? Like the highest expression of your soul here in this body. So if we can connect with our highest self, it's always going to lead us down our soul. I call it the soul aligned path. And then that way, when we manifest that thing, when it comes into our world, we've all hit those goals of like, okay, we hit this goal. Okay, wait a minute. I thought this was going to make me happy, but damn, it didn't. Like all this stuff is still coming up. And so it's going to help to keep you on that path that's really going to be truly nurturing to your soul. So that's one of the first things that I teach my clients to do. And then really getting connected with the body, because oftentimes our mind wants to like compare to other people, or if we're overachievers, it's like, come on, go, go, go. You have all this time. Like, stop wasting time. Let's do the damn thing, right? Like it's going to keep pushing you forward and really wants to take over. But I teach my clients really how to, the more you can drop into your body and allow your sacral to guide you and allow your heart-centeredness to guide you through this process, and then take the aligned action. I call it the intuitive breadcrumbs. The more you follow those, I feel like the manifestations just get to be magnetized to you. And it's all about releasing the how. So it's about having your big vision that's very soul aligned, that's very much driven on the soul path, and releasing the how. And this is like the weirdest, hardest part for me, especially because I was like, I want to control it. I want to figure out, well, how am I going to do this? Right? This is how I lived my life. I was like a workhorse, like, okay, we do A, B, C. I have college degrees and I go do this thing and this thing. And so once I let go of the how, the universe just provides the most incredible ways that we could have never imagined up ourselves. Like now I have the most incredible clients just dropping into my field who are like excited. They're thanking me and as they pay me, right? So I'm like receiving this with such love and gratitude. And I would have never imagined that that would happen. And so keeping our eye on the vision and then releasing it, knowing it's done. And then we get our body in line, we get in tuned with our body, we release the trauma, we do the work, and just follow those intuitive breadcrumbs. So that's kind of the process that I take my clients through and that I go through.
I love that. I love that so much, Valerie. I think what I love most about that is how you described getting into your body and really focusing on those intuitive breadcrumbs. It's so funny you should mention that, because I found that I've had to kind of like help the audience understand this, is they've been almost like flashes sometimes, or sometimes even when I'm just like disconnected from myself, I go, okay, what's missing here? And then I really dig deep and I'm like, oh, okay, I don't enjoy what I'm doing with my fitness. I really don't like living in this apartment anymore. I really don't like living in this city. My job is not really feeling good inside of me. And when I really answer that and listen to it and I can feel a sense of relief, that's when I'm like, okay, I'm onto something. This needs to be investigated further. And I've had like a crazy magical journey since I started listening to that sort of stuff. Like I remember it all began back in about February this year, when I'd finished dating another emotionally unavailable guy, and that brought me to forgive my ex. And then when I did that, it made me meet up my now personal trainer, who taught me about the body in terms of the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. And that was something that I was looking into at the time intuitively, because I was like, I actually want to learn more about how to heal the body. And then from that, it led to therapy, because I was like, I actually think there's some trauma here that needs to be healed. And from that, I learned that I actually do better when I'm physically away from Sydney. And that's what encouraged me to then think, oh, well, I'm going to move to the Gold Coast, because that enables me to then be closer to nature, away from where I am right now. And though I'm working towards that goal of moving, and I'm so close to that now, it's funny, Valerie, I just feel happier. Like, even though the manifestation in its fullest, like the full vision, if we want to call it that, hasn't materialized just yet, I already feel like I've got it. Like, I already just feel so good. I just feel so calm. I don't have any of that noise in the background where it's just kind of like, like I can come to work on a Friday afternoon and be like, yeah, I just want to do this. Not because I have to, but because I genuinely enjoy the experience. And I have boundaries with it now. And I, like you, when you're saying, like my clients thank me for paying me, when I get to receive some of the transformations my clients have had, I'm just like, thank goodness I chose to do this and be true to what I do, rather than just niching myself down, doing things that I don't enjoy for the sake of others. And so I'm sharing my experience more as a way of saying I'm very much in the motions and the processes of like the full manifestation, but I already feel like it's here, and I feel good in the sense that I feel like I'm just allowing myself to surrender to the process.
Yes, and that's the magic. That is the absolute magic. It's like knowing it's already here, it's done. It's just a matter of everything that I'm desiring coming into my physical reality so I can see it, but I already know it's done. And it's such a weird thing to think about. But that's the magic of it, is that you just say, it's already done. I'm just waiting for it to arrive here, like an Amazon delivery. Like, here it comes. I'm just waiting for it to arrive here in my physical reality. And then you just keep following the breadcrumbs and doing the heal. This is the thing, doing the healing work and shifting that stuff when things come up. And so, for example, like if you're using, if anybody's listening and they're using affirmations, notice in your body when you're saying the affirmations. Notice if you notice any tightness or any discomfort or any of that, because that is going to be the old unprocessed stuff. So for example, back in February, so February must have been a magical time, because I had this as well, where I made a gigantic leap. I was doing a lot of work around money and my relationship with money. And I was saying affirmations, and one of them was that money is always here for me. And I could not, like, I would say the sentence and my voice would crack and I would feel this tightness every single time. And so I knew that there was something more there. There was something to dig deeper on. And so as I tuned into that part of my body and noticed what old energy was there, it came up, you know, in childhood with a relationship around my dad and always being there for me. So I had to heal that part, and then money started flowing in like crazy. So it's so powerful. So notice in your body when these things start to come up so that you can shift it, and then you know, like, okay, now I'm back in alignment.
Yeah. I think that's actually a really powerful thing because I think sometimes we say affirmations almost for the sake of it, thinking like a chant, it'll actually get us closer to where we want to be.
Right.
But I think that, as you said, it's really about being like, okay, why do I not feel like that's true?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes affirmations that I've used have been more in the process of being like, I can see my account is gradually increasing in wealth over time because I know that allows my brain to go, yeah, that's true. And so I found even in some of my most financially scarce moments, I'm not freaking out about money because I'm like, yep, that's actually accurate. And so I don't feel that sense of restrictiveness, that constriction that can sometimes happen. Because I don't know about you, Valerie, like I think, okay, a phrase like you mentioned, money is always available to me. You know, I didn't feel it then, but I have in the past felt like a tightness in my gut sometimes where it's just kind of like, that's not true. And sometimes I've had to really work through that and be like, why don't I believe that's true? And so I find that when I'm, you know, working through my body's cues, like you said, it usually leads to things from the past that I've yet to sort of work through and be like, that's actually not a belief that I agree with anymore. Like I remember, actually, I'll give you a more tangible example. I remember, strange one, sleep was a big thing for me. I used to think, oh, I like sleep. But then when I said it out loud, I'm like, no, actually, I don't like sleep. I've been procrastinating this thing like crazy. I don't enjoy it. And for me, when I really dug deep, it was a fear around death. And so when I worked through that and actually found a way to create like a fun sleep routine, and I logically went through my brain and was like, no, there's nothing to be afraid of in this space. I can enjoy sleep now much better and I don't have any anxiety over it. But I think that's where a lot of this starts, like you mentioned, is those stored memories from childhood and also getting in the way of actually being able to live out what we want for ourselves.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And that's why I see the connection to the body and then connecting that also with your highest self is like one of the first keys that we can do for sure. Yeah, that makes so much sense.
But I think it can be very hard to get there in the first place too. So what would your advice be to someone who is very new to this, who's maybe a little bit disconnected from their body? Like what would you advise them to do in order to guide them to that place where they can be more in alignment with their intuition?
Yeah, there's so many simple things that you can do that just literally take a couple minutes a day. So, and can it really be incorporated into what you do? So one of the most simple things is breath work. So just literally sitting for like, just set the timer for 2 minutes and just breathe. Just notice your breath. You don't even have to know a certain technique. Just noticing your breath and the way it's coming in and out of your body will help. It also stimulates your vagus nerve, which is another fun thing we could go on another rabbit hole about.
Oh yeah.
But it's a really great way to drop into your body. Another thing is just mindfulness. Like if you're someone that works out and maybe you, instead of having lyrics on while you work out, if you listen to music, just put on some actual like, I use like I think I call it lo-fi hip hop beats. So that still has the beat, but there's no lyrics to it. And then really just tune into your body. Notice your muscles contracting. Notice your core tightening. Like do those things so that you can really drop into your body. Going on a walk and literally listening to your feet hit the ground as you're walking and noticing your breath. Like all of those really simple things will start to activate this within you and help you drop into your body.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned that because I would agree. I think it's very easy in our age, especially like walking, exercising, to allow ourselves to distract ourselves. And I know I've done that in the past where I was like, I actually need to shut my brain off because it's just too much. And I find it so amazing when we ground ourselves with the environment and actually allow our brain to just sort of process things and to feel what's going on around us too. Because I think for me, one of the greatest things that I found was just really listening to my body and being like, am I feeling good at this time in my
Yeah.
life? One of the biggest moments of awakening for me a couple of years ago when I was in Europe was when I really just thought to myself, I'm holding on to way too much crap. And I decided to let go. And I just felt this sort of like mental relief of just like, wow, that felt good just to release all
Yeah.
the need, like the mental need to hold on to this job that wasn't serving me, this relationship that wasn't serving me, a whole range of things. And I think that can sometimes be what keeps people stuck is a
Mhm.
belief that they need to hold on to something. That's just like, now, okay, imagine what it would be like not to do that. Or imagine, or just ask yourself the question, is this really in alignment with you? And if it isn't, you'll feel it because you'll
Yep.
feel tension, it'll feel forced to say this is who you
Mhm.
are. And honestly, you'll
Anxiety,
just
depression, right? Yeah.
exhaustion.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
a big one too that I think gets missed because some people think, oh, well, I'm just working hard. It's like, no, no, you're working on something you don't enjoy.
Yeah.
That's really what
Absolutely.
it is.
Absolutely. And as you're saying that, I'm also thinking about how our nervous system just wants to maintain status quo. So the thoughts of like, okay, maybe I'm not happy in this job. Maybe I want to go get a different job or, start my own business or whatever that is. It's moving that nervous system out of like its homeostasis place. And so as we move forward, we have to be able to really connect with our body again so that we can, I call it like calibrating your nervous system to the quantum leap that you're making or to this next shift that you're making. And I'm sure we've all felt that without probably realizing it. Like if you try, you went to a new job and you felt nervous at first, or you felt like this like unease, and then it took you a little bit, right, to like calibrate your nervous system to it and get used to it. And so that's just another facet that I think about as people are moving into making these beautiful soul driven life decisions. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think when we allow ourselves to surrender to our soul, it's really quite powerful. And I don't know about you, Valerie, but one thing I've learned for myself too is I think there's a season to all things as well. Like, I think that our soul's going to guide us from one juncture to the next, and that if we kind of expect that our soul's going to lead us to our final destination, we're just setting ourselves up for more failure because the reality is that there's no such thing. I mean, sure, we have a certain number of years on the planet, but our soul's just really guiding us around from one journey to the next, sometimes in
Mhm.
shorter spells than others, but it's not there to guide us to this magical place of being like, now
Yeah.
you're happy forever. It's like, no, if you're not happy in yourself right now, then you will never be happy. And it's one of the biggest things I think high achievers suffer is that we have this belief that we need to work hard, do these things for others,
Mhm.
constantly show up for all these things with the expectation that if we do that someday down the road, we will finally get the love and worth we feel we never got as children. And the horror that we have to sort of make peace with is it's never coming.
I think you've been in my life because that was my journey for so long. This hustle, this like,
Mm.
okay, when I hit this next step, then I'm going to be happy. When I hit this, when I get this next degree, then I'm going to be able to get the perfect job and then I'll be happy. Right? It was like always this next thing. But until, like you said, until we are truly embodied into who we are and truly fall in love with this journey of healing, because that also is never just done. There's never an end point for that. It can begin to move faster once we do it more often, but there's never a done. The next, thing that comes up, or the next level we're wanting to seek out, or the next phase of expansion we go into, there's going to be new levels of healing on a deeper level. So embodying that and falling in love with the journey of it, and like you said, letting your soul guide you through all these different seasons and journeys, and know that there is never going to be this like done place. But as long as you can find the happiness within now, you're going to be happy wherever you go, right? Wherever your soul leads you to go.
100%. 100%. And I think it's a hard thing to accept the will of the soul if you've been operating purely out of your mind throughout the entire time. I remember my last job when I was a gay relationship coach. I was like, yeah, that's what I think I want. And then for a time it was, until I really looked deep and was like, hell no, because it's been coming out of a place of wanting to prove myself. And when I finally allowed myself to feel that, and I remember too, Valerie, there was this other thing as well, which was very telling. I had no desire to do any work. I was just like, I'm done, I'm tired, I'm
Yeah.
exhausted, I just don't want to show up. And I was like, no. And it wasn't even a case of having like boundaries on the weekend. Like I was doing that. I was just like, ugh. Like the thought
Yeah.
of doing any more of this stuff, it just exhausts me. And I felt limited. I felt boxed. And it's not to say that I didn't enjoy what I did. I really found it was the necessary first step in my journey. But I relate to this story because I think that in many cases, we just do things almost, like on a treadmill. We get started, we get excited, which is fine, but then we keep going expecting that to sort of be like, oh, we're now in the happiest place we are. It's like, no, we're ready for the next part of our journey, and
Hmm.
it's no longer this part of our journey. And I remember I had a lot of mental legwork I had to do to get around that, because I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to move into this direction of holistic healing, of course, the brain then starts going, well, I need to get all my ducks lined up in a row. I need to have X, Y, Z. I need to have all this sort of stuff. And I realized, thanks to my coach now, who I have, and also a lot of support around me, I actually don't. You know, and I'm obviously still learning. You and I have obviously talked about different modalities of learning, therapy and stuff, which I've learned already, but I'm also looking to learn in the future. But I think that it's only when we sort of just like surrender to it and go, guess we're doing this, and it's a real feeling like when we get it right. Like I wrote down in February, so many moons ago, I was like, I know that I'm becoming a holistic healer. It was only until about last month when I finally sat down with that word and was like, actually, this is so right, that the disconnection I felt in my body, the waves of depression I had for like about a month, the existential crisis just ended, and I was like, oh wow, that was it. So
Just
it's
like
just
that.
amazing how when we just sort of like we bite the bullet that the soul's been trying to give us,
Yeah.
the rest of our body just is like, yep, we're good now. So
Yep.
it's nuts.
Absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes we're pulled through situations where we know our soul is leading us somewhere, but our human self wants to stay, right?
Hmm.
Because the human part is like, what are you doing? Wait a minute, we're safe here. And so knowing that that's also part of the journey, right? Like I call it shedding and aligning. Like we shed and we align and we shed and we align and we just continue that process over and over again. And some, like you talked about, some seasons of shedding are a little bit longer than others. But when we're making these big quantum leaps in our life, being able to practice this work and really embody it is, I feel like, the key to it all.
I completely agree with
Yeah.
you. I completely agree with you. I think that it's definitely a hard thing to get used to, especially if we've spent a lot of emotional attachment to something as well. I mean, even in the world of relationships, I think sometimes we spend far too much time with the wrong person, even if they were great at one iteration of our lives. But it's just like our soul's yearning a new experience. And it's got nothing to do with the relationship, it's just got to do with what I'm after now. And I think that it's what keeps people stuck, is that human experience. It's like, oh, well, I don't want to be the bad partner that leaves. I don't want to, I don't want them to think badly of me. I don't want to hurt their feelings. It's like, yeah, all very well and valid. However, what are you missing out in
Yeah.
not doing that? And I tell you what, from my experience, the body has a funny way of, keeping the score in terms of like warning you if you choose to go down that human experience path much longer.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I feel like a lot of people end up with inflammation or even certain body things going on, anxiety, all sorts of different stuff I've seen show up, irritable bowel syndrome, right? Fibromyalgia. Like there's a lot of things that can show up when we're not being aligned with our soul. And because our body is, that the great book, Body Keeps the Score, it's holding all this old stuff, you know, anchoring us into the past, trying to keep us there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I completely agree. And I think the body is one of our best teachers in terms of being like, okay, if we're exhausted, like you mentioned, anxiety and depression. Like I know you and I have talked about this, and I've gone on record many times saying it's not a mental illness. It means you're out of complete alignment with who you are. Your body's trying to get you back on the road that your soul wants you to be on. And I think that's one of the things, like you mentioned, control. We have none. We have so little control.
Yeah. And that's where we get into like trust and surrender. Trust and surrender, and just take the next best step. That's it. Trust, surrender, take the next best step.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And I think that it's a process that I think we all have to learn, and it's just a tricky one to do. Anyways, to wrap up, Valerie, thank you so much for joining me today. This was so much fun getting to chat with you about this, because your wisdom and experience in this field is incredible, and I'm confident that you're going to change so many people's lives as yours keeps evolving too. Where can people find you if they want to reach out to you?
Yeah, so hit me up here on my Instagram, valerieshan.co. I do have one-on-one spots available this upcoming month, and we make magic happen. So yeah, hit me up or follow me and continue learning more about trauma and the way it impacts our lives.
Yeah, thank you, Valerie.
Thank you so much.
And for those of you, no, it's my pleasure. And those of your audience who are watching, I'm ken.reed.co here on Instagram. And Valerie, I'm going to definitely keep chatting with you, because I just find your experience and what you're going through is just magical, and I'm so inspired by what you're doing.
Thank you. Same to you. I know we can chat for hours and hours about this stuff.
This stuff is truly fascinating. And I think the last thing I'll say on this is, I think that we need to be more mindful of our body, and as well as like our past, because if we don't have a good understanding as to what's keeping us stuck and how our body's relating to certain things, we're just going to end up being more stuck.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, thank you very much, Valerie. You enjoy the rest of your sunny, hot Friday afternoon.
My hot Arizona summer here. You do the same.
I'm jealous. It's freezing at the moment. It's just cold at the moment outside.
Send you some heat.
Yes, please. All right, I'll let you go. Valerie, thank you so much.
Thanks.
And I'm sure I'll speak to you very soon.
Bye.